A police officer is walking a handcuffed teenager off a high school track. He hasn't asked him a single question, not one, and the kid is already talking. "I was protecting myself," he says. And the officer says it plain. "You're the alleged suspect in a stabbing." And the teenager actually corrects him. He says, "I'm not alleged. I did it." Behind him in the bleachers under a tent in the pouring rain, another 17-year-old Austin Metcalf is getting CPR, and he's unfortunately not going to make it. The boy in the handcuffs is Karmelo Anthony. He's also 17. And this week, after a trial that split the whole country down the middle, it seems like, a jury decided what those 3 words, "I did it," is going to cost him. And today we're covering all of it. Hey y'all, it's Editing Tyrella, and just to let you know, when we recorded this episode, there was no footage released from the surveillance system at the stadium on the day of this event. However, now that we've recorded this episode, there has been footage released. It's been released by multiple media outlets, and we also have shared it on our social. Be sure to check out our YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok, where we will share some of that footage as well. Let's get to the episode.
I'm Nikita.
And I'm Tyrella.
And welcome to This Feels Criminal. This week we are talking about the Karmelo Anthony trial. And if you have been anywhere near the internet over the last year, you know the names Karmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf, and you know about the track meet in Frisco, Texas. You also know this case got really loud online, and somewhere in the middle of all of that noise, the facts kind of got buried. So just a quick reminder, if you are a patron, part 2 is ready for you right now. You don't even have to wait. And if you are not a patron, that is okay, because we will be back with you on Thursday for part 2. So let's just get into it.
Let's do it.
Let's talk about Austin Metcalf. He was 17 years old. He was a junior at Memorial High School in Frisco, Texas. And his obituary read, he was born Tuesday, July 31st, 2007 in Frisco, Texas to Jeffrey and Megan Metcalf. Austin illuminated the lives of his friends and family with his infectious laughter and gentle spirit. He was a beloved brother to his identical twin and best friend, Hunter Metcalf, whose unwavering love and support will forever echo in the cherished memories they hold dear. From the time he was born, Austin was such a joy. He was one of the most kind-hearted and genuine people. When you met him, you knew he was someone you could count on in your life. He could always be there for anyone and would do anything for them. Along with being someone you could call at any time for anything, he could also make everyone laugh. He was so incredibly funny and outgoing. His spontaneity was amazing, and he could always get a smile out of you. He was a junior at Memorial High School in Frisco, Texas. Austin is a member of Hope Students and attended Hope Fellowship East on Wednesday nights as well as Sunday morning. And at a young age, Austin was fearless in any sport he tried, and his talent would shine through. No matter what sport he tried, he did everything he could to be the best he could be, and his work ethic, as he got older, never wavered so that he could stay the best. When he found football, it was instantaneous that he knew that was going to be what he wanted to play. He loved the sport with all of his heart and never gave up on his dreams of playing in college, and even farther if that's where his drive could take him. Austin's second love in life was the Texas outdoors. His many hunting and fishing trips that he went on with his father Jeff and brother Hunter are treasured memories. He had even shot his first hog this year and was extremely proud. Austin was a kind-hearted student navigating the halls of life with dreams yet to be fully realized. Though his time with us was fleeting, the impact he made in his short years was profound, leaving traces of joy and warmth in every moment shared. As we remember him, we reflect on a life filled with potential, aspirations, and the pure essence of youth.
Ugh.
Now, I know. Now, I'm also going to note here some stats, let's say, about Austin, and these are going to become important in the defense's case, so you can just put a pin in them for now, okay? Austin was listed as being roughly 6'1" and approximately 215 pounds. And remember, he played football, and obviously he was at this track meet, so he ran track as well. So very athletic.
Yeah, definitely. We are also going to talk about Karmelo Anthony. So he was also 17. He went to Centennial High School and was a junior there in Frisco, Texas. He is the oldest of 4, and the defense described him as an A student, I think I read a 3.7 GPA. I think Austin's was higher than that. So they're both
Smart kids.
Yeah, smart kids. They both are heavily involved in sports. Karmelo was also a varsity football captain. He was a defensive back. He'd had a shoulder surgery the year before, like his season before. He'd had an injury. He had to have a shoulder surgery. He wore it in a sling for quite a while after that. And then he was diagnosed with epilepsy at some point. I cannot find how long, but it was part of open court record. So at some point in his life. Now he is listed at 5'8" and 130 pounds. So that is significantly smaller than Austin Metcalf, which again is just going to come up later. So put a pin in that. Yeah. And everyone who knew him called him Melo. His first name is Karmelo. His defense attorney refers to him only as Melo in this trial, and boy, did it drive me crazy.
Why?
Don't do nicknames. I don't know. I just feel like just call him Karmelo or Mr. Anthony. I don't know. I think he was trying to humanize him.
Yeah, I think he was.
But I don't know that it went well. I feel like by calling him Melo to everybody, that weakened their point that some of the kids at Memorial did know him because they called him Melo. Anyway, we'll get to it, but it drove me crazy.
All right, so let's talk about the day of the incident, and that was April 2nd, 2025. There is a district track meet going on, and it's being held at David Kuykendall Stadium.
Kirkendall.
What? There's not an R in there.
No, but all them letters together go apparently.
They don't. That's false. Erroneous. Anyway, they're at a track meet at a stadium in Frisco. It is multiple high schools competing. There are hundreds of student athletes present, right? It is raining on and off throughout the day, which is an important detail. It will come up again later. And all of the teams have, well, not all of the teams. A lot of the teams have like a little kind of pop-up tent type thing, like literally something you buy at Costco and you can put up in your own backyard, like to just sit under in the shade, right? And they are set up on the bleachers. So they're not down on the field. They're up in the stands. And there is some information floating around that we're going to go ahead and just squash right now about this. And that is that Karmelo skipped school that day to be at that event. So there's been word online that he shouldn't have been at the event, that he wasn't running at the event, he wasn't participating, like none of that, and that he actually had snuck into the event. Not the case. He was a participant. I think you said he was listed as an alternate maybe for one of the events. He was part of the team. He was suited up. He was supposed to be there. So if you heard otherwise, that's not accurate.
Yeah, he rode the team bus with the coaches. Yeah. Everybody knew he was there. He was supposed to be there.
Yeah. Obviously, Austin and Karmelo go to two different schools. Both of their schools are competing. And at this point, by every account that we have, Austin and Karmelo did not know each other prior to this. They had never met prior to this. So
remember, Karmelo Anthony goes to Centennial, but he ends up under the Memorial High School tent. This is a big damn deal in this trial and in this case. Witness after witness was asked by the prosecution and questions by the defense, like, are you supposed to be under other people's tents? What's the deal with the tents? How come you have it's tent culture is a whole thing. Bizarre to me. I was just like, okay. But, and I get it. My kids play sports. So like when my husband coaches everything that they play, when we have games and if it's like a practice that's going to be during the day, we bring a tent so that our kids have some shade to be underneath. Yeah. During a game, you wouldn't expect the other kids to come over. But there have been times where it's been hot as hell outside, August at a football game. And if the other coach didn't bring a tent, we're like, come on, y'all get in the shade. So anyway, I understand it, but it's crazy. Anyway, but a lot of the witnesses said that the tent culture and track culture is very social. People will mingle under the different tents. They'll go say hi to people that they know at other schools and stuff like that. A lot of times you do know other kids at other schools and all of that kind of stuff. Karmelo also wasn't a stranger to that tent. So there was another kid who went to Memorial High School who knew Mello apparently through his ex-girlfriend. And I'm saying Mello now because Eddie calls him Mello. This kid's name is Eddie. He's over 18 now. His name has been printed.
Yeah.
Most of the other witnesses we're not going to be able to name because they're minors, but he was actually named in coverage and stuff like that. So he had seen him and was like, Mello, come over here. And other witnesses testified to this, that he was invited over by Eddie. And the defense witnesses say that the first few minutes were friendly. Karmelo is sitting, they're talking. Nobody seemed to have a problem with it at first, but then a few minutes in, Austin and Hunter Metcalf notice him and they're like, this is our tent. You don't even go here. What are you doing here? Sort of thing. I don't know all of the exact verbiage, but at some point, and different witnesses say different things. These are all high school kids. They're dudes who probably weren't
pay attention to
much
nothing.
attention. Yeah. But some witnesses say Hunter was the first one to notice. Some witnesses say Hunter wasn't even paying attention. I don't know. Anyway, it is apparent that Hunter and Austin did not want him under this tent. And so they were like, you need to get here or get out of here. And according to testimony, he was asked to leave an estimated 15 times or more by at least Austin and Hunter, maybe other people. I'm not sure.
So I think it's important to note here, a lot of the information that we're giving you is coming from the trial, from what we learned from the trial, which comes from witnesses who are, again, minors, who are also teenage boys. But this trial was a closed trial, so there is no recording of it. We don't have an official transcript yet. So everything is coming from the, I think, 10 reporters that were allowed inside and reported this out. I think there was some live tweeting. Obviously, there's tons of coverage of it that we've all watched. But that's what we're working with. There is no video, nothing like that. No official transcript that we can point back to. So we are reporting based on what other people reported out who were there.
Yes. Yeah. And our biggest source is CBS News and JD Miles, who was there in the courtroom. He live tweeted a lot.
Yeah.
He wrote a lot of stuff for their website. So we pull a lot of it from there. Okay. So one of the witnesses, the prosecutor says,
if you want to be the prosecutor, I'll be the witness. So it reads a little better.
Okay. Okay. So I'm the prosecutor. Okay.
Okay.
What does he do when asked to leave multiple times?
He doesn't leave. He gets angry and tries to provoke us, saying, make me leave.
Was Austin or Karmelo instigating?
Yes, Karmelo.
Okay. Then another witness. What does he say next?
F you all. I'm not going to leave. You're all a bunch of P words. Because I can't say it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm assuming that's what it, It definitely starts with a P. That's what they say.
Yeah. Well, it's also, again, redacted in what was sent out because people don't like to say that word. So I'm also assuming that's what it is.
Yeah. And then another witness says,
Karmelo put his hand in the bag and said 5 times, touch me and see what happens. Austin said he's not going to touch this guy. He was calm.
Which, okay. Now, I guess now I'll be the defense. Okay. Because we have also the defense questioning some of these witnesses and some of their own witnesses. And again, you can ask 10 people who witnessed the same event, the same questions, and you're going to get 10 different perspectives and 10 sometimes different versions and, you know, all that kind of thing. So it does appear that Austin was making some threats too.
Yes.
And so the defense says, do you remember telling the detective, you need to move before I beat your ass?
I don't recall saying that. And then the defense approaches this witness with a written statement that, and then the witness agrees that Austin said something along those lines about wanting to beat his ass. So we had a refreshed recollection there.
We did. Yeah. Apparently that's what he told the police officer closer in time.
Yeah.
That Austin had said something.
And let's also remember too, it's been a year since this event happened. These are, again, teenage kids. Even your best witnesses will forget minor detail. I wouldn't say this is a minor detail, but will forget details of things they said in an interview with police. So I didn't take that necessarily as them trying to necessarily defend him. Perhaps they were. Again, there's no official transcript. There was no video, so we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know how he said. We don't know if he was combative. Yeah.
Then we talk about Hunter's role in all of this, because this is a kind of contested issue, how much Hunter was involved in the incident, right? So the state paints the picture that Austin acted alone, that it was, and one witness from Memorial even said Hunter was not involved and denied that anyone ganged up on Karmelo at all. Now, that is important because Karmelo's defense is self-defense. That's what they're going with. And at some point it comes up that, you know, they were kind of ganging up on him, that he felt threatened, those kinds of things. So the state is painting this out as, nope, it was only Austin by himself. Hunter was not involved in this. Nobody else ganged up on him. Like, that was it. It was a one-on-one kind of situation thing, right?
Yeah.
The defense, however, tries to paint Hunter out as a co-confronter, if you will. So I'll be the defense this time, Tyrella, you be the witness.
Okay.
The defense said, I believe you told the detective that Hunter didn't tolerate being disrespected.
Yes.
So Hunter tells Melo to leave.
Yes.
Melo said, quote, no one has a problem with me being here besides you.
Yes.
And then another witness, they say, if you put Melo and Austin next to each other, Melo is smaller.
Yes.
Hunter started with a moderate tone and it got more aggressive.
Yes, sir.
So the picture that the defense is trying to paint and the takeaway is, from their perspective, there are these two brothers who are much bigger than Melo, because I think Hunter is of similar-ish size to Austin. I've seen it reported that Hunter is a bit more like slender, where Austin was more built for football, a little bit bigger in that way. But they were both really tall, about the same height. They were both big dudes. The defense is trying to say, look, there were two of them, at the least, two of them, much bigger than Karmelo. Like, that can feel threatening, right? So that he acted alone and Hunter and Austin acted together. Both of those things are presented to the jury. Both of those things are part of the record.
Now let's talk about the weapon, because you're going to hear a
Yes.
lot about that. And anybody who has talked to me about this case in the last couple of weeks has said, why did he bring a knife to a track meet? Why did he bring it if he wasn't going to use it?
Is a fair question.
It's a fair question.
But I think once you hear about it, you might change your perspective a little bit. I do still have some questions, but we can talk about it after.
Yeah. All right. So per the Collin County DA's office, it was a 6-in-1 Ozark Trail multi-tool, and you can find it online. It's sold at Walmart. It's like $13. It's a camping brand. It has a flashlight and a glass breaker. It does have, though, a 3.5-inch serrated knife blade. It was called a folding knife in early coverage, which technically it is, because it does have a blade. It was called like a 5-inch knife, folding knife.
Okay.
The entirety of the tool is, no, I don't know how much 5 inches is, 5 inches, but the blade itself is 3.5. So all of those are the same thing. And according to some witnesses on the stand, this is the type of tool that runners would often use to clean the mud out from their cleats. Does that change it? Does that take it in your mind from, well, he just brought a knife to carry out an attack, or okay, well, this is like a camping tool. Like, yes, it does have a knife. Now it's not a knife either.
True.
So
I think, and again, we don't have the full transcript. We only have what was like reported out. So maybe it did come up. But I do think as we go through this that maybe the defense missed an opportunity to really hammer this and really go in on, no, this is something that was common. Did they bring up, is this common for people to have? Did other kids have these or similar type things in their bags?
It doesn't feel like they did, because I feel like I would have seen that all over the place when I'm going through all of these people talking about this. Maybe that they don't. Maybe it's not common to use, and that's why they didn't ask that.
Possibly,
But yeah, that would have been.
But if it is
something
a common
good to bring
thing,
out.
Well, and also I think even just pointing out that it's a multi-tool, it's essentially like a Swiss Army knife type situation. Like, it's got gadgets and stuff on it. Like, it's not only a knife.
Right.
I think even bringing that up and really spending some time on that would have been to the defense's benefit.
Again, would think so.
Maybe they did. I don't know. We don't have a transcript.
Right. And there are some people online figures, political figures, all kind of stuff that are like, well, that's not even like, it's not a big deal. I wouldn't even think you could hurt somebody with that. It's just a little, no,
Yeah.
it's an actual blade. It did. It sliced through his heart. Okay.
Yeah.
And I covered a case a long time ago, and I don't remember the kid's name now, but his younger brother was murdered in their house when they got back from getting off the bus. Anyway, he was killed with a penknife, which I mean is like, it's
Teeny
little,
tiny.
it's teeny plastic. There's, I mean, it's like a nail file almost.
Yeah.
Or whatever, but he was stabbed a bunch of times with it, and it did kill him. So no, there are things that don't seem that dangerous.
Right.
Pantyhose don't seem that dangerous, but it's real easy to strangle people with them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the medical examiner said this is what he was killed with, and that is a deadly weapon because it killed him. So you've got both sides of the coin that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in Texas, anything used in a way capable of causing death is considered a deadly weapon. So now the defense established over and over and over and over, this is something they did say over and over and over and over. Well, it's not illegal to carry a knife in Texas, is it? And everybody they asked was like, no, it's not illegal to carry a knife. But the prosecution did get out of all of those same witnesses. Well, but bringing it to a school is a policy violation, right? You're not supposed to have a knife at school. And they're like, right, yeah. So again, it's fine for you to carry it, but if your use of it is not deemed justifiable by self-defense, then like that didn't I don't think that helped. I don't think harping, but can you carry a knife in Texas when
and their argument that like it's a violation of school policy, not of the law. Right. But what do we know about weapons on school property? That violates the law. Well, I mean, at least here, maybe it doesn't in Texas. I don't know. But like, honestly, sometimes that ups the charge if you're in a school zone or at a school function or, you know what I mean? So like, I didn't love the argument. I get that it was legal to have it.
Yeah.
I understand they're establishing that he didn't get it illegally or something like that.
Yeah.
But I don't think that helped the argument the way they thought it was helping the argument.
No, I think what would have helped so much more would have been calling out that a lot of kids use that, or a lot of kids have that, or, you know, even because just like here in the South, I've never known my dad to not have a pocket knife on him. And like a lot of guys have pocket knives, and like when your kids get old enough, like that's a thing that people pass down to them. And like, a boy gets a pocket knife for his like 12th birthday or whatever. That's a thing.
Yeah.
So if you had established that fact, if somebody had established he carried this every single day, that was something that was always in his backpack because blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. This is part of his track bag because he's cleaning out his cleats or whatever, anything, anything.
If they'd established that, it may not have changed anything, but I think it would have been a lot better than, well, was it even, but it wasn't illegal. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think that helps you. So I don't know. I thought that was interesting, but the prosecution's big thing, which the defense did not appear to raise any doubt on, was he brought a knife that day because he expected to get into a confrontation for some reason, and he wasn't going to lose.
Yeah. I don't like that argument. I don't know that. And again, if they made the argument, perhaps they backed it up somewhere in the testimony or in their, presentation of their side of the case that maybe he was known for this, or we know he had a lot of, beef with lots of other track people. But it doesn't feel like that was established. And just to be like, he brought it because he knew there would be a confrontation and he wasn't going to lose. Like, that seems, without something to like back that up, or like a history of him being in fights, or I don't know, that feels a little far-fetched to me. Just to be like, he showed up to a track meet and just in case something popped off, he wasn't going to lose. Like, I don't know. I mean, it's possible. It's possible. I would have liked to have seen evidence one way or the other on that, and I don't think we got it. And they're just like, see, he had an intent to hurt somebody that day. Yeah. But I mean, let us know what you guys think in the comments. Tell us if you think, he brought it because he knew a confrontation was going to happen and he didn't want to lose, or if you think this is just typical track. Tyrella and I aren't runners, you know that. We don't believe in that. So we don't know what runners normally carry. But if you're a runner, let us know.
No.
Is this something that you would normally have with you?
Right. Yeah. I mean, my kids play sports with cleats, and we've never cleaned mud out of them. We might have hosed them down a little bit or something, but I've never.
Like, I'm not picking dirt out of cleats.
No.
Yeah. I don't know. Okay. So let's talk about the moment that everything kind of goes down, right? So Austin moves to physically push Anthony off the seat that he's sitting on. It's described differently by different witnesses. So some witnesses say it was like a single shove. It was a soft push in between. He didn't manhandle him. Yeah. Okay. So I will be the defense on this, Tyrella. You be the witness. And we are going to hear kind of some back and forth exchange as the defense is cross-examining a witness. Okay?
Okay.
So
and wait, who are you going to be?
I'm going to be the defense. You be the witness. And this is all one witness right now. So the defense says, Austin is standing up. Melo is still seated.
Yes.
That's when Melo reached into his bag after Austin mentioned something about wanting to beat his ass.
Yes.
Austin calls his bluff and says, quote, I know you don't have anything in that bag.
Yes.
For Austin to make his way to Melo, he has to move up 5 rows.
Yes.
All this time, as Austin is moving closer to Melo, Melo is seated with his hand in the bag like, don't come closer to me.
Yes, sir.
Melo says, as long as you don't touch me, we're cool. Or don't touch me.
Yes.
So in this, the state is trying to say that Karmelo provoked the shove. And the defense is trying to say, well, Austin had to cross 5 rows of bleachers to get to this kid who's sitting down, who is repeatedly saying, don't touch me, stay away from me. There's going to be a problem if you touch me.
That's where I have a hard time.
I have a hard time with a lot of things in this.
Yeah. But
this is one of them.
Yeah. To pin the provocation solely on one person.
Yeah.
When it would be different to me if Austin had stayed seated and Karmelo crossed to him. And I watched a Bruce Rivers video on this case. He's a criminal lawyer. He's great. He's out of Minnesota, but he was talking about this case. He's a defense lawyer. And he said, in all of my self-defense cases that I have tried and any self-defense cases that I see, he was like, the person who closes the gap loses, right? Because that is a provocation. You have come to them and now they have got to potentially defend themselves.
Yes.
And I thought it was interesting that the state is saying none of that counts.
Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that.
But by the time Austin crosses 5 rows of bleachers to get to him, and the whole time he's saying, don't come over here, don't touch me. And Austin is saying things like, I know you don't have anything in that bag, like calling his bluff.
Yeah.
And then he finally gets there, and then Karmelo now says, touch me and see what happens. That's the moment of provocation.
Yeah.
I find that interesting.
My issue is that, I mean, we're gonna go through it some more too.
Yeah.
But just after going through it, I feel like it seems pretty clear that Austin kicked off the interaction. Maybe Hunter. I don't know. One of the 2 Metcalf boys kicked off the initial interaction and engaging with Karmelo, whatever. I think both boys were making comments at each other, making snarky remarks to each other, going back and forth. Austin tells him, I'm going to beat your ass. Karmelo says, touch me and see what happens. I think the fact that they are both participating in that part of it takes provocation out of it completely for me, because they're both provoking each other at this point.
Yeah.
And at that time that Austin says, I'm going to beat your ass, Karmelo says, touch me and see what happens. They're meeting force with force. They're matching force. They're both exchanging threats, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think at this point, up to that point, they're both equally guilty, let's say, of provocation of the other. So it's not one-sided up to this point.
Yeah, it feels like 2 teenage boys kind of peacocking, like, I'm in front of my friends. I can't be the one that backs down. Like,
This,
squaring up.
This feels like dumb boys with too much testosterone, adrenaline's pumping, we're at a sporting event, like we're already in competitive mode, and things are just escalating. That doesn't make it okay.
No.
But it seems that's what's happening at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's at this time that Anthony pulls the knife from his backpack and he stabs Austin once in the chest. And it happened so fast that witnesses thought that Karmelo had just like pushed Austin back. Because remember, Austin had already pushed Karmelo at this point, and so everyone thought that Karmelo had just simply pushed him back, basically. Austin stands up and he says something along the lines of, I think I got stabbed. And he lifts his shirt and they say there is a hole in his chest. They don't describe it as a cut or a puncture. They say a hole. And Hunter then runs up at that point to help his brother. And that's when the bleeding becomes obvious and people kind of start screaming and they scatter. Karmelo actually runs. He runs up the bleachers and out of the stadium and into the parking lot. And he is out of that stadium and into the parking lot in under a minute, which means he was fast.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I could do that.
No.
And I think it's important to note here that yes, he ran. Everybody ran, but he did not leave. He went to the parking lot. He didn't hit the parking lot and keep on going. He was still on the premises.
Yeah. So there was like CCTV stadium surveillance footage, and it does capture this whole event from a distance. And when I say distance, I mean like
a distance.
Way the fuck in the distance.
Yeah.
So when they brought the Tarrant County video forensic analyst Mark Porter, he used software to enhance and zoom in on multiple angles and stuff like that. The journalists who were in the courtroom said that like when they're telling you like what to watch, they're like, look in this tiny little corner, you know, up in the left. So it's very difficult to see. It's a huge view. And so you've got to like zoom in on the one part. They show the moments leading up to and just after the stabbing. Karmelo is seen walking up to the top of the tent first. And according to Anthony's defense, he sees a friend he knows from Memorial. This is Eddie. Nobody else has a problem with him sitting there. The zoomed in angle shows someone pushing another person. And then this is followed by a sudden burst of movement. Anthony, identified by Porter, then moves up the bleachers before running down. He falls down at one point, and then he runs, and then he walks away. So this is him going to the parking lot. And that felt to me like, again, this is so pixelated, it's hard to tell who and what's happening and all of these things. But for there to be visible shoving on this video, I feel like it had to lean more towards the side of like a harder shove, not a... Because some witnesses were like, oh, it was a 2-finger touch. Some people were like, I think it... And some people said 2 hands, some people said 1 hand. I think if you can see it from that angle, there had to have been a pretty forceful shove. I would think. I didn't get to see the video. They've not released the video. They're not going to release the video as far as I know. So again, we have to just rely on what people say.
Yeah.
And according to testimony, they were under the tent for about 4 minutes altogether before this happened. So it did not take long.
Was not long at all.
Yeah.
Okay, so remember we said Karmelo has run out to the parking lot at this point, and officers caught him near the track, and he, you know, puts his hands up. He doesn't fight them, like nothing like that.
And he was with a coach, like a coach.
Yeah,
one of his
had
coaches,
found him.
Yeah, had his arm around him. They were talking. He was really emotional. He wasn't trying to go anywhere.
He was crying, and that he was like, "Oh my God, is he okay? He's not gonna die." He did not think that what he did, obviously he's realizing like, holy shit, I just stabbed someone, but he does not realize how bad it is. And before the police even question him, before they say anything to him, it's completely unprompted. He says out loud, I was protecting myself. And this is when police are like, listen, you are an alleged suspect in a stabbing. And he immediately says, I'm not alleged, I did it. And 2 separate officers noted that he said that. So it wasn't just like, well, you know, one police officer said they heard him say, no, I actually did it. Like two separate people heard this. They say he's emotional. He is crying hysterically. He said he put his hands on me. I told him not to. And he asked an officer if it could be considered self-defense and asked, is he going to be okay? Talking about Austin, I'm assuming at that point. They noted that there was blood on his left middle finger, and they do recover the knife in the bleachers. It was partially open still, and it was bloody. And just kind of a weird detail that came out is, remember we said it had been raining off and on all day. This is under a tent. So they find the knife, and they, I guess, drop the tent down because they're trying to preserve the scene essentially as much as possible. And they grab a backpack to sit on top of it to keep the tent down or keep the tarp down. And the backpack that they grabbed was actually Karmelo's backpack. Out of all of the backpacks that were sitting there, it was his.
That's the one.
Yeah. While this is going on with Karmelo and the police, trainers are performing CPR on Austin, but due to the nature of his injuries, they were not able to save him, and he was pronounced dead at 10:53 a.m. at Texas Health Plano, and he was only 17 at the time.
I cannot. Oh, God, I cannot even imagine. So Karmelo Anthony is charged with murder. This is a first-degree felony in Texas. His bond was set at $1 million. It ended up being reduced to $250,000, and he was released to house arrest with an ankle monitor. A grand jury does indict him for murder on June 24th, 2025, and his trial was set for June 1st, 2026. Now, as soon as all of this happens, both families are getting harassed. They are getting repeated swatting 911 calls. Both fathers had to take leave from work. Reportedly, Karmelo Anthony's family had to relocate because of all of these things. So it immediately became just an absolute firestorm.
Yeah. For both of them, for multiple reasons. Stuff like that always pisses me off because both of these families are dealing with a lot right now. One family has buried a child. One family is possibly about to lose their child to the prison system. And now we need to throw swatting and harassment into the mix. Why? Why are we trying to make people's lives harder?
Yeah, let the justice system play out.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Okay, so the trial starts June 4th, 2026. We get opening statements. The judge is John Roach Jr. He gives both sides 20 minutes each for their opening statements. The prosecutor is Bill Werski, and he says Anthony, quote, buried the knife in the heart of another young man, and then he ran away. So he's framing this case as this doesn't have anything to do with race. This has nothing to do with self-defense. This was a provoked and unjustified murder.
Which I don't know if we have mentioned. I mean, I'm sure everybody already knows this at this point, but Karmelo Anthony is black and Austin Metcalf is white.
Yes. The lead defense attorney is Mike Howard, and he frames it as this was a smaller kid. Remember, Karmelo was listed as 5'8", roughly 130 pounds, facing two much bigger boys, Austin and Hunter, both approximately 6'1", both approximately 215 pounds. That Austin made the first physical contact despite being warned off, and that Karmelo made a split-second decision out of fear and immediately said he was defending himself. They're obviously framing this two different ways. The defense is going with this is self-defense because, again, remember, Karmelo has already said to two police officers, it's not alleged, I did it. At no point in this trial do they even suggest that Karmelo is not the one who stabbed Austin. Like, that is a fact that no one is disputing in this.
Yeah.
Then we get to the video. The prosecutors walk the jury through the enhanced surveillance footage frame by frame. And their whole argument is that this video tells the story of what happened. As we mentioned, the video is far away. They are under a tent. You can't see everything. But when defense witnesses describe people surrounding Anthony, because at one point they say, well, people were surrounding him and coming after him, and he felt threatened and ganged up on. Prosecutors also use the video at that point to show that that never happened. that only happened after the stabbing had already occurred, and that one witness wasn't even looking at the tent when everything happened. So the video does, despite the fact that it is grainy and far away, become very important for several different reasons. And I think the least powerful thing it did was show the incident itself, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think it was more powerful in supporting witness statement and discrediting witness statement. To me, that was the big thing that it was helpful for, right?
Yeah, because those witnesses who were like, oh, yeah, well, they were surrounding him before it happened, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
When the prosecutor was like, okay, let's watch it again. Now that actually happens after. They're like, oh, yeah. And he gets them to agree that their memory doesn't match what's on the video.
Yeah, which is powerful.
That is.
But it also does cut against them in some ways too, right? Because their own video expert, remember that was Mark Porter, admits on cross-examination that the footage does not capture the actual stabbing occurring, and that, you know, he couldn't even tell the jury that an argument was happening in the tent because there's no audio, you can't hear it. You see people talking and then you see people running, basically, is what he's arguing. And the defense said, you really can't tell what people are doing under the tent, can you? And Mr. Porter says, no, sir. So the video tells the story that the prosecutor is pitching is kind of a little shaky. And I think the defense points that out. And I think they should have pointed that out.
Yeah, which, again, they've got to do what they've got to do with the facts that they have.
Yeah.
And Karmelo did not testify. So you've got to get everything that you can out of these other witnesses. There is other testimony that, again, there were lots of witnesses to this. And both sides called students who were there. And they kind of both ended up landing in the same place, which was devastating for the defense.
Yeah.
Do you want to be the prosecutor or the witness?
I'll do whichever one you don't want to do.
Okay, you be the witness this time, I guess. Okay. So prosecutor says, was there any reason you saw for Karmelo Anthony to stab Austin Metcalf?
No.
Was Karmelo Anthony acting in self-defense?
No, that's lethal force against non-lethal force.
And the prosecutor again says, was this, to another witness, was this self-defense or murder?
This was murder. I don't like that.
I don't like that. I don't like that. I did kind of a freaking deep dive into this because how can you ask a witness that question when the jury is supposed to be the fact finder of that very fact? Yes. But apparently in Texas, if a witness is there to observe, they can give their opinion, but he can't say he was guilty of murder.
Right.
But pretty much he can walk right up to that.
Yeah. I don't love that.
I do not love that. The prosecutor asks another witness, was this case about race or self-defense? And the witness says no. And then he says, who was wrong that day?
Karmelo.
And then one more witness on the victim himself.
My opinion is Austin didn't deserve what happened.
This is not good for Karmelo.
No.
Even his own witnesses end up saying that the person who provoked the confrontation was Karmelo, that Karmelo was in the wrong. He used lethal force against non-lethal force. It wasn't justified. It was absolutely murder, those kind of things.
Yeah, that's not good.
That is not good. And why, as a defense attorney, would you ask those questions if you did not know what the fuck that kid was going to say? Unless they had talked to these kids and they were going to give it. I don't know if they flipped on the stand or what, but like.
Yeah. Or if maybe the prosecution explained, like if, well, I mean, I don't know. They wouldn't be sitting in there. But if self-defense was explained to them, like this is what self-defense is, this is how the self-defense argument works, do you think, based on what you saw, that this was justified?
Yeah.
And then maybe with that information at that point, then they're like, no, I don't know. But you would think that the defense would have prepped them for that.
Well, right. And I saw, because I read through, I went down like deep into Twitter, which I hate, or X or whatever. Sure. But a lot of these people, you know, these journalists were kind of live tweeting as it went on. And so I went and looked through a lot of this stuff, and there were several of the defense. Now, the defense only called a few witnesses, but all of them appeared to have been better prepped by the prosecution than the defense.
That's wild.
And they the way that the prosecutor talked to them was like, we've met before, we've taught, blah, blah, blah. And the defense attorney appeared to have not really talked to these people before, which would be a huge misstep, I would
Yeah.
think. What are you
Well,
doing?
I will say put a pin in that because we're going to talk about some things that have been alleged about both families. And if you believe what the internet is saying about Karmelo's family, then perhaps there's a reason that the defense didn't do that. I don't like it. I don't know that that argument is true,
Yeah.
but it doesn't seem that the defense, based on what we know, maybe prepped their witnesses the best, maybe made the best arguments they could have. And there are a lot of reasons for that. There's a lot that we don't know here. So we're just giving our opinions based on the information that is available to us at the time of this recording.
Yeah. The medical examiner, Dr. Elizabeth Ventura, testified, and she said that the knife penetrated Austin's heart, resulting in a single stab wound. The prosecution did ask, is this type of wound survivable? And she said no. It was about 2 inches, and it was like gaping at the surface. They kind of described it as like a filleted open kind of wound, which is horrific. And I wasn't sure if that was because of a certain level of special force, or did he stab and then cut or something like that. But your skin just has so much, or the skin in that area has so much more tension. So if you think about your abdomen, it's a little bit stretchier, or your arms have a little bit more give. So in that area, your skin it's got tension, it wants to pull. So that's just the natural physiology of that type of wound. And like having worked in plastic surgery, like the skin on your face, if you're going to have a mole removed from your forehead, you can go to a plastic surgeon. They're going to layer the stitches in that so that it prevents that pulling apart and then the widening of the scar. So that's essentially what happened there. But it's horrific. And Austin's parents were not in the courtroom for that testimony. They saw autopsy photos. And they also said, or she also said, that there were no defensive wounds on Austin. So meaning he never saw this coming. He certainly was not expecting this. And again, the knife was ruled a deadly weapon by the medical examiner, and the manner of death was, of course, a homicide.
Yeah. So the defense did call an 18-year-old witness who was on the track and football team and was friends with Karmelo, who testified that going to other tents, is part of track culture. Like, this was not uncommon, that he had been to the memorial tent before. And since, he and Karmelo both had friends over there, like, it was not weird that he would have been there. They had never had issues before. Prior to being asked to leave by Austin and Hunter, everything was like kosher, all was good. And he says, typically in those kinds of events, it's like sit and hang out with us for a while. Like, you don't have to, it's not like you have to like walk by, wave, say hi, and then like keep it moving. And so he says, like, we would spend around like 10 or 15 minutes at somebody's tent, and it was like not uncommon, not weird, not like, why is this guy here? What's he doing? Whatever.
Yeah.
The defense kind of floats that, and they get to this through cross-examining the medical examiner, that the wound's angle could fit Austin having been leaned over or moving towards the blade itself. And that Anthony's hand was underneath the knife, so not on top. And basically what they're trying to suggest is that it wasn't an intentional like stabbing, that basically like he was holding it out and Austin, I don't want to say fell on it, but was like coming at him.
I don't think that was a good look.
No. But what the defense is doing, again, they're not trying to say that Karmelo is innocent of this act. What they are trying to do is knock down the level of intent.
Right.
So they are trying to prove manslaughter versus murder. They're trying to say, look, this wasn't intentional. This wasn't premeditated. It was an accident. And he's admitted that he did it. So it was an accident. Let's treat it as such, right? Obviously, the prosecution is not about that. And they're like, the idea that Austin would have impaled himself on this is insane. Ludicrous is actually the word that they use, which makes me think of Luda.
Luda, when I read that, I Googled 100 different ways and different times to be sure that that is actually what the defense said, because I thought there is no way.
Yeah,
there is no
that's what
way.
I'm saying. Let's talk about the levels of homicide in Texas. We'll blow through these really fast, okay?
And this is different. They don't have second-degree murder.
Right. Yeah.
So it is different.
So level 1, murder, that has to be intentional or knowing. It means you act with conscious objective to cause death, or that you are aware that the conduct is reasonably certain to cause death. It includes causing death while committing or attempting to commit a felony. It is a first-degree felony. It carries a sentence of between 5 and 99 years or life in prison. The next level down is manslaughter. That is considered like what we would call a reckless homicide. You consciously disregard a known substantial and unjustifiable risk that death could occur. The risk must be of such a nature that a reasonable person would know that this could potentially happen and you didn't exercise caution. It is a second-degree felony. It carries a sentence between 2 and 20 years. Next level down is criminally negligent homicide. It involves criminal negligence. It's where you should have been aware of a substantial or unjustifiable risk, but you fail to recognize it. Your failure obviously then causes the death, right? It's normally up to 2 years, but if a deadly weapon is involved, then that changes from 2 to 10-year sentence.
Mm-hmm.
There's also, and you can kind of put a pin in this, the excuse of sudden passion is what they call it. And it is not a charge, but it is a sentencing factor. So if the killing happens in the heat of passion kind of thing, I think that's what we call it here in Tennessee, heat of passion, that is a result of a real and sudden provocation, it can reduce the sentence down into the 2 to 20 year range. Mm-hmm. So it's a mitigating factor, let's say. So just put a pin in that. What is actually presented to the jury, though, is the consideration of murder or manslaughter only. So criminal negligence is not on the table at all. He's looking at murder, which is between 5 and 99 years or life in prison, or manslaughter, which is between 2 and 20 years. Mm-hmm. So they are not allowed to consider anything else. And they are given instruction, which the defense did object to, and it doesn't help them at all. The judge tells the jury that they can throw out self-defense entirely if they found that Anthony provoked the confrontation. Now, given that nearly half of the witnesses agree that he provoked the confrontation, that instruction to the jury, I would say, is fatal to the defense. It is, at the very least, a catastrophic blow to what they are trying to prove here.
Yeah, absolutely. Closing arguments are on June 9th, 2026. And again, all we have are the reports from journalists in the room. So I'm going to select some of the live tweets from JD Miles on the defense closing. So defense went first. The prosecutor could have gone first. He said, go for it. I'll just clean up at the end. So the defense says Austin Metcalf had no legal right to use force to eject Karmelo Anthony from that tent. He had no legal right to put his hands on Karmelo. Karmelo is in a public place. We ask you this incredibly tough task, which is to follow the law. The government wants to make this case about Melo could have just left. He talks about how these track meets or social events. It's that because a big part of the case was, why was he under the tent? He wasn't supposed to be. He was in a place he wasn't even supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, well, what do you own the whole? I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, so he's like, he could have been there. It's a social thing. People go between tents. Yeah. It was raining, so he was trying to get out from under the rain, that kind of stuff. But he also was like, we know how Texas weather is. It's easy to think, boy, I better get out of this rain. I'm like, yeah, okay. He also says you have to put yourself in Karmelo's shoes. So you start under that tent, you want to get out of the rain. I don't think you're supposed to say that kind of thing, but the prosecution didn't object to it. So yeah. I'm sure he was like, you're sunk anyway, so it doesn't matter. Yeah. And then he says, sure enough, some of the people at Memorial say, yeah, come on over. Then all of a sudden, Hunter Metcalf or Austin says, who are you? You need to leave. These guys are bigger than you. Do you turn your back and walk away and take a chance at these teenage boys with their raging hormones? I'm like,
Yeah.
Bro,
Yeah.
what are we doing? I didn't love that.
Yeah.
Austin and Hunter had the right to tell Mello to leave, but they did not have the right to use unlawful force to make him leave. Mello had a right to defend himself against that. Then he says, how do you know in a split second of chaos when it's too late? If you wait too late to defend yourself, self-defense is meaningless. He also says that the kids who said that Mello was the aggressor were Austin's friends, and of course, they have a bias. He says that the accounts are jumbled as to what happened.
Yeah. I will say, here's my issue with him being like, well, every witness was one of Austin's friends. Well, but they were at the memorial tent. It was his team.
Yeah.
All of Karmelo's friends were not there. Like, you know what I mean? Like they were in his team spot. So it seemed like, well, of course, the majority of the witnesses are going to be, I wouldn't even say necessarily his friends, but his teammates, people who knew him, who had no maybe real connection with Karmelo at all.
Right.
I don't know. That rubbed me the wrong way for some reason. I was just like, I mean, I hear you. You're not wrong, but also.
But they witnessed their friend get murdered. Like, you don't want to be like, well, you don't want to insinuate that they wouldn't be telling the truth or that and I don't think he was saying they were lying. I understand that he's saying their recollection may be colored by the fact that they're friends with them, but there were just a lot of things this guy said that I was like, would we say that? Would we say that? I don't know.
Yeah.
He says, the evidence is clear. They didn't know each other. The only motive that Karmelo would have had would have been to protect himself. He acted in fear in a split second of chaos. The way the knife entered shows that it wasn't intentional because his hand was underneath and not on top, which, I mean, I don't know. You can put a knife into stuff many different ways.
Yeah.
On the credibility of the memorial students, he says, I understand where they're coming from. They lost their brother. Why Karmelo didn't walk away. If you turn your back on him, who knows what's going to happen? We have this chorus of people, but it's too late to turn your back. What's going to happen? I don't know. One of the witnesses said that before Karmelo put his hand in the bag, that Austin said something like, you're a little bitch or something like that. So there was, there was some back and forth that came out.
Yeah.
The prosecution, Bill Worski, was like, absolutely the fuck not. He was like,
prosecution was not fucking around.
No. On Karmelo being like, touch me and see what happens or whatever, he says, don't let them turn a threat into just a warning. So he's trying to not minimize what he means by that.
Yeah.
He says, you heard the testimony, it was a threat. It was not a warning. On the testimony that Austin could have accidentally stabbed himself, he said that's ludicrous. He said what should be important is mindset. He took a knife to attract meat, and that was very effective for him because
it was.
He's hammering. Why did he even bring it there? He knew that there could be a confrontation with somebody, and he was going to make sure that he came out on top. That's the mindset. And he says, this is one of those rare cases where every important fact can be boiled down to one sentence. You do not get to meet a shove with a stab, especially if you provoke the shove. And that is another part of self-defense too. If you are the provoker of the altercation, you then do not get to use self-defense as your defense. Right. Because you have now provoked the thing, and then you're like, but now I had to defend myself. It's like, well, you started it. They were essentially defending themselves in a way.
Yeah.
So if the jury finds that Karmelo provoked this, self-defense is out.
And I mean, the jury instruction was, if you find that he provoked this, kick self-defense out.
Yeah. And Bill Worski even commented on, okay, well, look, if you do think that Austin accidentally stabbed himself or impaled himself on Karmelo Anthony's knife, then find him guilty of manslaughter, but he's still guilty. Find him guilty of something. He says all of the witnesses say that Karmelo provoked it. He really hammers in you can't meet a shove with a stab. It has to be immediately necessary. Where was the immediate necessity to plunge a knife into an unarmed young man? He reminds them that the video shows nobody is standing up and surrounding him, not until after the stabbing, that Austin didn't have defensive wounds. He never saw it coming. And he says, it is senseless that Austin Metcalf lost his life on a Wednesday morning at a high school track meet. We don't take weapons to school events, but he did. Ultimately, this case is about accountability. What kind of community do you want to live in? You represent the community today, as unpleasant as it may be. It's your duty to follow your oath and hold this young man accountable for this senseless murder. I beg you to make justice swift in this case.
The prosecution's closing was unfortunately very powerful.
It really was.
So after roughly 3 hours, which is not a long time. We started this June 6th, right? And they ended June 9th. So it was roughly a 3-day trial.
I think it started the 4th.
Okay.
And they went on Saturday, too. They had court on Saturday. It was, I never heard of such.
Yeah, no. It's somewhere between a 3 and 5-day trial, right? The jury deliberates for 3 hours. That's not a long time at all. And they convict Karmelo Anthony of murder, rejecting the lesser option of manslaughter. And in the gallery, the two families are on opposite sides of the room. Anthony did not testify. He was sitting there in his suit and tie. And when the word guilty is read, he absolutely breaks down sobbing in the courtroom. His parents stand up and walk out. His father does not come back later that day for his sentencing. Everyone is devastated, basically. Yeah. So guilty of murder after only 3 hours. That's the word that the jury sends back to Karmelo Anthony. But we are not done because there are a lot of things that we still haven't told you or talked about here. The number of years he's been sentenced to. And before we get to it, we are going to tell you about another case, another teenager, another knife is brought somewhere it had no business being, and another classmate bleeding out on the floor. Another kid who has to look at the jury and say, I was only defending myself, except that one didn't just stab the person one time. He was stabbed again and again. And when his jury came back, they did not say murder. They didn't even say manslaughter. In Texas, guilt and punishment are two separate trials. It is the same jury, it is the same judge, but it is two separate proceedings, okay? And so we have already found Karmelo Anthony guilty of murder, and now the only question is, how long will his sentence be? So typically in these hearings, both sides do get to have an opening statement, and they can call witnesses. Both sides waive their opening statement in this instance, and the prosecution actually rests without calling any witnesses. And the defense's entire punishment case is only one witness called, and that is Karmelo's mother, Kayla Hayes. And she says, he's my oldest, he's my firstborn, he will always be my baby, and I love him very much. And that was, I just can't imagine. Anyway. And the defense asked her, does your son regret what he did? And she responds, yes, he's very sorry for what he did. Now, remember, we talked about the sudden passion as a potential mitigating factor in sentencing. Mm-hmm. So this is where that will come into play. And if the jury found that Karmelo acted in this grip of sudden passion, right, from this very real provocation, then his range for sentencing would drop from between 5 and 99 years to life. It would drop from that to between 2 and 20 years. And again, remember, in their closing arguments, the defense asks jurors to put themselves in Karmelo's shoes, that if he hadn't acted in self-defense and if he had just walked away, the boys and their hormones, anything could have happened. And if you wait too long for self-defense, then self-defense is meaningless. And in the prosecution's closing, they tell jurors that you don't get to meet a shove with a stab. And they ask the jury to consider a life sentence, telling jurors, quote, mercy to the guilty is cruelty to the innocent. Regardless of what you do today, plenty of life sentences have already been handed out in this case. And I was like, whew. Again, the prosecution is just bringing the heat.
I know. He knows what he's doing, man.
I know. So in this hearing, the jury deliberates for 2.5 hours, and they reject the sudden passion mitigating factor, and they sentence Karmelo Anthony to 35 years. So in Texas, a 35-year sentence for the offense makes him parole eligible. He's not parole eligible until he served half of his sentence. So 17.5 years before he's eligible. Mm-hmm. Eligible is not the same as being granted parole and being released. That will be just the first time that he is able to possibly be granted parole.
Yeah.
And as it is read, as the sentence comes down, Karmelo is again crying. He's shaking. His parents are not in the courtroom at this time. Remember, they had walked out earlier after the guilty verdict was read and before the jury had come back with their sentence, and they did not return to the courtroom for sentencing.
I don't love that.
I didn't love that either.
I don't know
I
why.
also don't know. Yeah, I don't know why, but I also don't know that I could emotionally handle sitting through that too. And it's my understanding that they happened on the same day, right?
Yeah, they did. I mean, I'm sure it was a lot. I just can't imagine leaving my baby in that courtroom and not have me to turn around and look out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. And not that you could have done anything, not that you could, but
it's so tough the way around.
Yeah.
For everybody.
Now, there were victim impact statements, and these are just absolutely heartbreaking. Megan Metcalf, which is Austin's mother, she said, "From the moment my boys were born, they were my world. Now my house is quiet. Tears fall. Austin's laughter would fill the room." And again, these are paraphrased by the journalist in the room. "Seeing my twin lose the most important person in his life crushes his mother. Going into an empty room, empty bed, and once again remembering Austin is dead." She said that Austin was a morning kid. He was a hugger. She said Austin always had a way of bringing people together. He was a peacemaker. I miss talking to him. Now my conversations with him are one-sided, sitting at his grave. Ugh. She said she had to accept that instead of walking beside her, her son Austin is now walking above her. She says, "My son was murdered. He didn't just die." She said the hardest part is living with the loss every day. And directly to Karmelo, she said, "You should feel lucky because I've been sentenced to a lifetime without my son. You got 35 years. I got the rest of my life." Mm-hmm. Jeff Metcalf, Austin's father, said, "From the first day he grabbed my finger, he had my heart with it." Recalling his first fish, his first buck, he said watching him grow up through the years went way too fast. He said that he loved watching Austin in sports. He said, "I truly believe you had a great career ahead of you. Your intensity on the field showed the leader you were. Your teammates looked up to you." He also said the family has started a scholarship in memory of Austin, so people know what it's like to be a leader. "The saddest part is we don't get to see you achieve all your goals." He says we were robbed. And while he's talking, he looks at Karmelo and he says, "Don't look down, look up." Mm-hmm. He says, "The public's response sickens me when people want to tear down my son's memory and I have to be quiet." There was a gag order in this case. Yeah. So the family could not talk publicly until after this trial was over. Yeah. Hunter Metcalf, his twin brother, did speak as well. He also began his statement asking Karmelo Anthony to look him in the eye. He says, "What I've been doing in the last year is trying to learn how to forgive. I have been choosing God and trying to understand why he had to go. You took a son, a brother, a friend, my best friend from this world. You took someone away from me who was supposed to be an uncle to my kids, and now I want everything taken from you," which is, understandable. He said that he wants Anthony to think every day in a cell about what he did. He said, "You let the devil take over in that argument." He says, "Eventually your name will be forgotten, but my brother's memory will live on." And Hunter called Anthony a very shallow man for what you did. "You took everything from me." Karmelo did not speak. And after Hunter spoke, Karmelo was removed and court was adjourned. And the next morning, he was transferred to a state prison northwest of Houston. And okay, we know that Karmelo was sentenced to 35 years. Before we talk about the next case, does that number feel, I would just be interested to know, like before we get into the next case, like if you're listening, if you're watching, does that number feel appropriate? Too long? Not enough? What do you think? And then, because I want to know your reaction before you hear about this case, and then I want to hear about it after. Does it change anything? Does it not change anything?
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about Caysen Allison. And that is out of Belton, Texas. So it's still Texas. It's a different area. Couldn't tell you where either of these places are. Okay, it's Texas. They're probably very far away from each other. In May of 2022, Caysen Allison stabbed Joe Ramirez Jr. in a Belton high school bathroom. Ramirez had one large stab wound to his chest that affected his heart. He had 2 stab wounds to the buttocks and 1 to the back and arm. And during his trial, it was revealed that Caysen had said to friends prior to the fight and the stabbing that he wanted to, quote, see Joe on life support and wanted to, quote, stomp his head in. He also texted another friend, quote, "Bro, bring me a gun." He had told at least one or more friends that he had gotten a knife out of his stepfather's closet to use if there was a fight. And there is surveillance footage, and it shows Ramirez throwing punches before Allison draws the knife. There was documented prior tension between the two, evidence that they were planning this kind of schoolyard fight, that they had verbal altercations in the past. Like, these two kids knew each other. They had a history, and it was a tense one, and that was known.
Yeah.
There's also testimony that the other kids in the bathroom were filming the fight before the stabbing, because Ramirez, quote, liked his fights recorded. And Allison claimed self-defense, and he fled the scene and went home after everything happened. So ran away all the way away.
And he threw the knife out his window of his car as he was driving away. And now he did cooperate with the police and tell them where he threw it out, so they were able to find it.
Yeah.
But still, he fled the whole entire scene.
Yes. In closing arguments, the prosecutor said that while Allison may not have wanted to be jumped by other kids at school, he did not have the right to bring a knife to a fist fight. Now, let's talk about the outcome of that trial, because that is the whole reason that we're talking about it. Caysen Allison was charged with murder, but his jury acquitted him of murder and manslaughter and convicted him only of criminally negligent homicide, which is even a step lower. Karmelo's jury was never even allowed to consider criminally negligent homicide here. And they did find a deadly weapon enhancement, which would bring the maximum sentence from 2 years to 10 years. And Caysen Allison is sentenced to 10 years, which was the maximum available for that charge. Now, let's look at these two things side by side, because we're going to acknowledge they were different cases. They were in different towns. The facts are similar but different. We acknowledge that, and we're not disputing that. But what we want you to see is how two similar situations can end very, very differently, and then you can draw the conclusions you want on why that was. So, in Allison's case, he is a white defendant. He stabbed the victim multiple times. There was an actual fist fight. There were altercation. Punches were thrown. There was a history between the two. There was known bullying that had been happening. And he's still convicted of the lowest homicide offense. Now, it does get enhanced because there was a deadly weapon involved. And he does get the maximum sentence for what he is convicted of. But his jury is given the option to look at all 3 levels of murder charge. And he is given the lowest level, which is then enhanced, of course, because of the deadly weapon, right?
Yeah.
Anthony, go ahead.
Well, and what really struck me about that case is like the statements that he made prior. I want to put him in the hospital. I want to see him on life support. I'm going to stomp his head in. Somebody bring me a gun. He's making a lot of statements. He's actively provoking a fight, right? He is they're arranging this on Snapchat because kids. You have a lot of statements of intent. He even said, I got the knife out of my stepfather's closet for this.
Yeah.
I knew it was supposed to be a fist fight, but I decided to use a knife.
Exactly.
And what also struck me is he stabbed him at least 4 times. And there were some slash wounds too, I believe. Yeah. One of them was to the chest, but the other 3 were on the back of his body.
Yeah. So self-defense is out the window.
That's what yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting for sure, because the intent seems to be pretty clear in the Allison case. And it's something that was, I would say, debated in the Anthony case.
Yeah.
But here we are. And then, of course, Karmelo Anthony was a black defendant. He stabbed the victim 1 time. There was a single shove, debatable how hard the shove was, but not the point. There was 1 physical interaction prior to the stabbing after he refused to leave and was threatened and also made threatening statements. And he is convicted of murder, the highest degree, and he is sentenced to 35 years in jail. Now, the disparity isn't necessarily in the sentence itself, in the number of years, but it's how much benefit of a doubt the jury gave the same story. Both kids say, I was afraid for my life. I had to defend myself. One jury believed it enough to completely wipe out both murder and manslaughter charges.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they knew each other, they had a history, all of these things, even though he stabbed this kid in the back. And the other only took 3 hours to feel like that wasn't a valid argument. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting, and we'd love to hear like your take. So at this point, you know, we've already asked you at the sentencing, and after hearing those victim impact statements, how do you feel about the 35 years with Karmelo? Now we have another case where, again, they're not the same.
Right.
Both people knew each other. There are major differences for sure. But as far as the act itself, you could argue, now both people lost their lives. So
yeah,
there's no getting around that. But
it seems that there are enough parallels.
Yeah.
That, yes, they definitely should have been treated differently because of the differences in the circumstances. But it just kind of makes you be like,
yeah,
because one of them feels worthy of 35 years and one of them does feel worthy of 10, but maybe not the way it shook out.
Yeah. And look, a single case doesn't prove anything. We're not trying to say that at all. But the Caysen Allison comparison is just another case that is on top of lots of other research. Okay. So the U.S. Sentencing Commission in 2017, and this is federal data, and it's controlled for offense and history, but they found that Black men receive sentences about 19% longer than similarly situated white men. Accounting for prior violence pushed it to around 20%, and the violence did not explain the gap. Black men were also about 21% less likely to get a judge's discretionary leniency. Now, in 2023, the U.S. Sentencing Commission produced another report, and the gap narrowed, but it held about 13% longer, with Black men markedly less likely to get probation instead of prison. The Urban Institute in 2013 found that white on Black killings were roughly 10 times more likely to be ruled justified than Black on white killings, and the gap is bigger in stand your ground states. Texas is a stand your ground state, and so I wondered how that, because no, it wasn't Karmelo's school's tent, but he was in a place that he was legally allowed to be. So does that not, I guess it didn't kick in, or they just didn't argue it. I don't know.
But. Well, the stadium that they were at, was that the stadium that is at Memorial High? Yes. Or either of them? Okay.
Yeah, it is Memorial's.
Okay.
Yeah, they were hosting it. And again, this is federal.
Either way, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And this is federal data.
And these
two are state cases.
Yeah.
But there are real patterns. I mean, there are lots and lots and lots and lots of research and situations that play out where race does play a role in what people get arrested, what people get believed when they claim self-defense, how jurors tend to view two teenagers who maybe committed essentially the same crime, but we take pity on, or not take pity, but we give the benefit of the doubt. Yeah, benefit of the doubt to one and not the other. We see this in Brock Turner comes to mind, when he raped a woman, but he was a white kid who was a swimmer at college. So are we really going to ruin his
whole
life
ahead of him?
Yeah. Do we do that for people of color as well?
Yeah.
Not nearly as often.
Yeah.
So there are real patterns here that can be entered into this conversation. And there are a lot of conversations like this on the internet having to do with this case. So again, we would just love to know, does that change the way that you feel about the 35 years? Do you still think it's what was warranted? We'd just love to know. There's also a situation with the jury, though.
And this one pissed me off.
Yep.
Well, everything about this pisses me off. So let's just talk about it, right? So it's a jury of 12 with 6 alternates. Pretty standard, right?
Mhm.
They were pulled from a pool of 589 people, and not one seated juror identified as Black in a county where Black residents are roughly 12% of the population. So there should have been at least one Black juror
Mhm.
in this pool of 589, right?
Mhm.
The prosecution struck all qualified Black jurors, arguing that the strikes were race neutral. The defense does raise their Batson challenges, which, if you recall, you can raise a challenge to say that you feel like jurors are being struck based on race. It also applies to some other things as well, but it started out race based. And the striking party, so whether it's prosecution or defense, has to give a race neutral reason for why that juror was struck. And then the judge decides if that stands or not. And the judge did allow all of the strikes to stand. I find that interesting. Maybe they had valid reasons. We don't know. We don't know what the reasons were.
Their reason was that they said
Okay, Tyrella knows what the reasons
I
were.
do know, because I went down another rabbit hole.
Okay.
They said that all of the jurors that were Black, it was 3 Black women, that
Mhm.
they listed their occupation as educators, and that they felt that they couldn't be impartial or whatever because these are school-age children, and so educators shouldn't be on the jury.
Well, then arguably anyone who, by that same logic, is a parent shouldn't have been on that jury either, because they wouldn't be able to be neutral about
children.
children. That's
And
stupid, and I don't
according
like it.
to reporting,
Did they strike every single person that identified as an educator?
No, because they said that there were white people in the jury pool who were educators as well who were not struck. Now, again, I don't know that for a absolute fact, but that was reported that there were
Interesting
similar occupations that just so happened to not be Black. So they struck 100% of the Black jurors, and then we're like, well, that's not because they're Black.
Yeah.
And then,
obviously, no.
and as long as you just basically say, well, that's not why, then the judge is like, well, okay.
Yeah.
Like,
to overcome a Batson challenge isn't always necessarily difficult if you have any sort of neutral reason that you can provide. But in this case, where race does become a very hot topic in it, it
Right.
just seems icky, and I don't like it. And we'll talk about, what is happening again later. So we might get some more info on this Batson challenge thing coming up. But that's that. Also, at jury selection, so while this trial is going on, people are protesting, and it's nuts. Like we said earlier, both families get swatted.
Mhm.
The public goes kind of crazy with it, and I hate that.
Yeah.
Again, like we said before, both of these families are already going through really heavy, difficult things. The outside noise it's not helping. You're not proving a point. You're actually you're making it worse.
Yeah, and this is where I think the interest by the public in true crime can be very negative, because there are lots and lots of people who cannot stop themselves from going real world. You can read about it, you can talk about it, you can feel about it. You don't make phone calls, you don't show up to people's work, you don't get people swatted. That is absolutely insane.
This is their real life. It's not a hypothetical thing that's for your entertainment that you're watching. People are doing this. It's really happening to them.
Yeah. It's just crazy.
Yeah. So as this is going on, remember there was a gag order in place until everything was over. After everything goes down, Jeff Metcalf, who is Austin's father, the gag order is released, right? He tells CBS that this case was never about race.
Mm-hmm. And there were some white nationalist organizations that were trying to prop Austin up as their kind of face for, all that kind of stuff. And he was like, no, don't do that. This is not about that. I don't want that. He was very against that.
Nothing would piss me off more than if that's my child, either family, right? If some organization, especially white nationalist, or if there's a group on either side that's very extreme like that, and you want to use my kid or my situation, I would scorched earth everyone. Are you kidding me? Anyway, that's another hill to die on another day. So the gag order is lifted, and he makes his first public comments on the Jinxed Sip podcast on June 10th. And on that podcast, he prefaces a comment with, quote, "Let me make something racist up so y'all can go viral." Then he says he came up with a nickname for Karmelo. I am going to say what the nickname that he came up with is. This is a direct quote. Okay. He called him the watermelon felon. And if for some reason you're not aware why that is offensive, it is a phrase that the National Museum of African American History and Culture traces back to the Jim Crow era as a racist stereotype of Black people eating watermelon, that kind of thing. Incredibly inappropriate. I understand that he prefaces the comment with, "Let me make up something racist so you'll go viral." But it doesn't seem like you had to really make that up.
And could we not and say we did?
And, and also, why did you feel the need to be like, "Well, let me make up something racist so you can go like," that's disgusting. It's disgusting behavior that you would even suggest that.
Yeah.
Like,
it's not okay.
Yeah, not okay at all.
You can be grieving. You can make bad decisions when you're grieving. I understand that. But for the things to come out of your mouth to be in just very downright disgusting racist comments.
Yeah. And that is like deeply rooted racist stuff. Like that, again, it goes back to like Jim Crow era. Like that's not, that wasn't anything about Karmelo himself as a person. That was very specifically about related to the Black community and things that were offensive to the Black community as a whole. I don't know.
We don't do that.
We don't do that. And I know, like, he's, like you said, he's grieving, whatever. I have said things when I'm upset that were hurtful and hateful and mean, but I've never accidentally turned racist because I was grieving or angry or upset. Like that feels like a default setting that just accidentally came out.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Awful.
I'm sure he's a great person. I don't know. But it just, I don't know. It didn't sit right with me. I didn't like it at all.
No. And even he still insisted, he's not racist. He's like, I've forgiven Karmelo, all those things.
But it also felt like he made that statement and then he's, I'm not racist because I have a Black friend. And it's like, or like, I'm not gay because I know the guy at my grocery store that bags my groceries every week is gay and I don't, it just, okay.
It's just
yucky.
Not good.
No.
Now, the internet has come for Karmelo's family, too. So they raised nearly $634,000 on Gibson Go. This was organized by his mother, and it ended up being taken down after the conviction. The Help Karmelo official fund was posted on Gibson Go on April 15th, 2025, less than 2 weeks after the stabbing, with an initial goal of nearly $1.4 million. Apparently, a new fundraiser has been started by the family's spokesperson, Dominique Alexander. Okay, here's the thing. What you're going to hear on the internet, because Karmelo has now filed an appeal.
Yes.
And in the appeal, he is asking that an appellate attorney be appointed for him because he is essentially destitute, indigent, all of the things. He does not have funds to hire an appellate attorney.
Right.
And so people on the internet are like, what about that $634,000 fund that you had? And, isn't that shady? And, all of these things. So I've also seen people say that Karmelo's family misused those funds and hired public defenders because they used it all and couldn't hire attorneys. That's simply not true. They did hire lead attorney Mike Howard and his
co-counsel.
His co-counsel Toby Shook. Now, what I have learned about Toby Shook is apparently he and Bill Worski are like buds. They prosecuted together for many years. He was a former lead felony prosecutor. He ran the Dallas DA's trial bureau, and he is a very prominent defense attorney in the area. So they had at least two very experienced attorneys retained. You've got a year of pretrial litigation. You've got all the things that go in there, the hearings, the, you know, all the work they do. You've got to hire experts, you know, possibly like all of these things. They've got all of these things to do.
And for a year-long situation, there are hearings happening in between. These attorneys are doing a lot of work. $600,000 is not a lot of money in that context.
Right.
And it's also not a lot of money when your freedom, when your future, when your life essentially is on the line.
Right. Because that doesn't even count, like all of the pretrial stuff doesn't even count the trial. That cost a lot of money too. So and the fundraiser said on it, it was very, I think, transparent about the fact that this is not going just to his legal defense. It is mostly going to that, but we are also looking for, I don't think they said living expenses, but supposedly because of all of the fallout from everything and the swatting and all the attacks and the harassment and stuff, they had to relocate to somewhere else. So they were renting a home. I don't know how much of it they used for that. We don't have any itemized list anywhere, but a defense for a murder trial is very expensive.
Yeah.
It just is. Now, there's also another situation that happened that, again, is not a good look. So, per WFAA, reporting from April 2025, the Next Generation Action Network, which is the advocacy group representing Karmelo's family, and this is run by Dominique Alexander, the family spokesperson, they held a press conference in Dallas. They were wanting to, what they said was that they were like trying to kind of get rid of that false narrative that was out there about the family and about Karmelo and things like that. This is days after Karmelo was released on bond. So Jeff Metcalf, Austin's dad, showed up. And the press conference had ended up being delayed, but he shows up at the office and he told Megyn Kelly he was there to kind of extend an olive branch. He wanted to pray with them. This is what Jeff says he's there for. The advocacy network, though, called the Dallas police and had him removed from this. Which, again, now you will hear that reported as his parents specifically called the police. It was not either of his parents that called. That doesn't mean they weren't okay with it. I don't know that much. But it was the network itself that made that phone call to police.
Yeah.
There's just so much, like...
There are a lot of layers to what's going on.
And vitriol on both sides. And
it just, whether he wanted to pray with the family or not, if that was his intent. Again, read the room. There's so much going on. Everything is so tense. Everything is still ongoing at this point. Now's not the time. You could have your attorney reach out to their attorney and say, hey, I just want to let you know that we would love to, meet and pray with you. You could have communicated that in a way that wasn't you showing up at a press conference where they're trying to dispel rumors that are flying about themselves. Like, it just...
Yeah, because you just never know. I don't think it's a good look to have called the police on him because that's kind of crazy.
Right.
But at the same time, I've covered cases where parents of a victim have shown up and tried to, vigilante justice.
Yeah,
you just don't know.
You never know. You never know.
Yeah, it's just, there's just a lot that could we not? Just could we all and then not? Just
like... Whether you want to let them know that you've forgiven them or whether you're there to extract your vigilante justice, like, this is the time where we all need to just kind of stay in our own lanes a little bit. Like, we don't need to complicate things further by trying to help.
And I think de-escalation would be a very valuable tool for everybody to have in their pocket. And the more I think about this case... And just all of the things. I think it's senseless. I think it's tragic. I think Austin Metcalf should be alive today.
Yes.
There is no reason that he's not. There's no reason. I cannot say whether Karmelo really did fear for his life. I do not know that. I was not there. I'm not inside of his brain. He says he did. I don't know.
Yeah.
But either way, he should still be alive. And the more that I have thought about this case, I have thought, I just hope that if my children stay involved in sports and there is a day where it is raining and somebody from another school gets under their tent, I hope that they would say, yeah, man, hang out here.
Yeah.
Stay as long as you need to. And that whoever comes under the tent is kind and courteous and, just like there was just no reason for any of it, other than it feels like I wanted to be a tough guy and I wanted to be a tough guy back.
Yeah.
And that does not do anyone any favors.
Yeah.
And look at how wrong it can go.
The more I think about cases like this, the more, and I'm taking it back to the very basics of the case of two boys posturing, fighting, whatever. I'm not considering race or provocation or any of that. The more I hear about and think about and see cases like this with young people, the more it solidifies to me how important it is to give our children the proper tools to manage their emotions, understand how to de-escalate a situation, like you said, understand that walking away is an option.
Or finding an adult.
Okay, so even if Karmelo had walked away, who's to say that Austin wouldn't have continued provoking him and, like, you know, he would have tried to de-escalate? We'll never know. Like, any of those things could have happened. But, like, it's important to equip our children with tools for conflict management and how to understand their emotions and how to deal with them. Like, I feel like it is a constant battle with my kids who are not teenagers yet, to help them understand how to properly manage their emotions and their responses to things. And I feel like I'm failing at it every day because they don't get it yet, because again, they're still learning. But I'm hoping that we're struggling through it at the ages of, 8 and 10 and not still struggling through it at the ages of 17.
Right, because these are skills that you develop.
Exactly.
These are skills that you learn, and with time and practice, you get better at them. And we also have to realize that both of these kids were 17 years old. Their brains are not fully formed and developed until they are 25 years old.
Exactly. And none of my comments were meant to be like negative towards the parents, like on either side, that they didn't do a good job at parenting or anything like that. It's just that for me, this solidifies the importance of learning those skills.
Yeah, it's a lesson I take away from how tragic this case is. Yeah.
So let's talk about the appeal. Karmelo Anthony filed a notice of appeal within 24 hours of the verdict, and an appellate attorney following the case said that the strongest issue is the Batson question, which I would say you and I have questions about, Tyrella, and whether the black jurors were improperly struck, because appeals courts decide based on the legal record, and if they see a question of law, the chance of success is going to go way up for them winning that appeal, right? So they're not going to hear anything new from either side. All they're going to get is just the record, and that's what they're going to look at based on the complaints filed. It does sound like they will be bringing up the Batson issue, which I think I want more information on. I want to see how this appeal comes out.
I think that's their best. I think that's their best chance, especially since in Texas, you can have eyewitnesses essentially testify to the ultimate fact in the case.
I did not like that.
Yeah, I didn't like that either.
I understand that's how they choose to do business. I don't like it.
Yeah, that was bizarre to me. I'm like, isn't that for the jury to decide?
It felt a little right up to the line, and we'll just put a little toe over the line. We're not going to cross it all the way, but we're gonna get real close.
Exactly. That was crazy to me. And I have seen it reported that this was an all-white jury. Now, not every single person on the jury was white. There were people of Asian descent per the reporting. There, I believe, were some Hispanic people on the jury. I don't know, though, who deliberated. I don't know if the 12 that deliberated were all white, because I've seen it reported over and over and over and over. It was an all-white jury, an all-white jury, an all-white jury. The other ethnicities were very small. There were not many. So out of the 18 possible, most of them were white. But I just did want to point that out, because you'll see different things, and we're trying to present everything that we can verify. Yeah. We're trying to let you know the things that are widely shared that have turned out to be misinformation, so that you don't read something and think that something that is not correct is correct or verified. Right. And we're also trying to find the nuance in this case, because we believe that trial should be fair.
Yeah, 100%.
And that guilty people need to be held accountable. But there should be a fair process by which to do that.
Yeah, agreed. And I will just say my feelings at the end of this are I don't think it was self-defense, personally, just based on what we know. I think both boys contributed equally in that regard to threatening each other, provocation, whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't think he put a knife in his backpack and came to a track meet with the mindset of, if there's an altercation, I'm going to win. I don't believe that either. I believe the jury should have been given all 3 considerations for murder. And I don't think this was first degree.
No.
I don't think the sentence personally was appropriate.
I don't think so either. I think that manslaughter would have been more appropriate. And look, I get it. Karmelo Anthony could be out by the time he's 35-ish.
Yeah.
You know?
But how much of his growth and development, because you're 17, you're still growing and developing and learning how to be an adult. How much of that is going to be stunted or shaped by
his
this
environment in prison?
Yeah. And then is that then setting him up for failure in the future to then be reincarcerated?
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Right. There's so many
That's
just
an important
layers.
consideration too.
Yes, there's so many layers to it. There are so many factors and aspects, and yeah. But that's where we land. We believe that he deserves to be held accountable, and we don't think that it was justified self-defense. And we would love to know what you think. Do you think that 35 years is appropriate? Do you think that another sentence would have been more appropriate? Because the system, remember, measured 2 different boys with 2 different rulers, and the data says it's not the first time and it's not going to be the last. And 2 things can be true. Austin Metcalf can deserve justice. His family can deserve to grieve in peace away from the circus that strangers have turned his death into. And every part of how this case was charged, tried, and punished also deserves the hard questions that we just asked. And there is still an appeal possibly coming. So we'll be watching that, and we'll be back if there's more to tell.
Yeah. And we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.